Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me on Shooting It Raw. A year ago, I met up with Rachel Smith, and we recorded this episode, which was a great one, because Rachel's a kind of person who, we live these weird parallel lives, two Canadians living in Hong Kong for years, and the stuff that Rachel has done and her commitment to being creative and to just living a great life. It's not like she goes, "Oh, I'm going to live a great life." It's more like she just does her thing, and so inspired and so impressed because she's so generous about her workspace, about her creative expression, about her whole energy. She's awesome. She's awesome. So I'm really happy to reissue this episode because it's just great. Okay, so do enjoy and keep making every second count. Okay, bye. I can come in, Rachel.
Hello.
Rachel. Here we go. There's no video.
I ran away.
I did. You ran away. I ran away. We both ran away.
Nice to meet you.
I love this. What is this? It's amazing.
This is my studio.
This is amazing.
This is my second life. Yes.
I don't know where to begin. This is amazing. Dude, okay, you've got a table. That's good.
I do.
I need about 5 minutes to set up and a plug.
That's great because I haven't actually finished making the coffee yet. Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. So, Rachel P. Smith, what's the P for? Just to kind of separate in the crowd?
If your name is Rachel Smith, you would put an initial in the middle as well.
That's true. What's P for?
It's my middle initial.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to say, before we even start, I don't even know if it's recording, but you have the best voice.
Oh, thank you very much.
In person, I don't know what happens because it's totally fallen apart, but in the podcast, the best voice. So it's very dreamy.
It's my podcasting voice.
Very dreamy.
So I actually work for the Jockey Club as well, doing the on-course announcements.
Oh, okay. Oh, really?
Yeah, so that sounds really exciting, but it's just the legal stuff. It's really boring.
Right.
But that's kind of how I got into voice work, was working for them. And, I went in and I was really nervous the first couple of days. And I thought, what I want to do is I want to sound like that person in Welcome.
Okay, yeah.
Who's doing the in aisle 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
you need to have the Cantonese accent, though.
No, this is the English side.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to channel. So I do my little, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the
I'm going to break you. I'm going to break you. No, it's not.
Oh, don't worry. It fluctuates. But when I tell stories on stage for Hong Kong Stories, I hate how my voice ends up because I'm not controlling it. I'm too busy telling a story, so I'm not carefully curating my voice the way that I can do when I'm hosting the podcast and I can just re-record. Right? I don't hate it. That's too strong a word, but I'm always just a little bit like, I wish I would have lowered that tone and not raised at the end of sentences.
Would you describe yourself as somebody who's a perfectionist or attention for detail? Would you?
No.
Would you be an accountant?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I am so shit at things like that.
Awesome.
So shit.
Awesome.
But when I'm doing something I care about doing it well.
Yeah.
So
I can see that.
In that case, if we're talking about sort of watercolor painting, I'm well known for being very anal retentive.
Right.
Yeah. I'm like, I must use the right paint.
Sure,
I must use the right paper. I must use.
No. Well, I think those are kind of the instruments that you're like a musician gets their instrument.
Yeah.
The Jenny Page who I had on the podcast last week was she plays the oboe, and she's telling me about how it's a double reed instrument, and that really you have to they have to conform to your mouth. They're your instruments. So
it's
the same thing with your materials.
Yeah. And it allows me as well. I do a lot of stuff that I give myself rules. that limit what I do a lot because I find that to be bizarrely immensely freeing.
No, for sure. For sure.
And so now that I've used, very professional materials and created work that I'm very proud of, when I want to play, I can go back and just use crap.
Yeah.
And I come up with all kinds of stuff that I'm super excited about. And I can either reproduce that in good quality again, or I can keep going with the less good materials, depending on what it is that I want to do with it. So it becomes really exciting to even pick up a paintbrush and a crappy set of kids' paints and go, well, let's see how far I can push this medium.
Rachel Smith.
And that's me.
No. So normally what I do is I get the person to first talk about, what does photography mean to them? And then that's usually how the podcast starts. Like that's but you screw that format. Let's play with it. Oh, so you've already given a window into your head. So we'll talk about the space in a second, which I'm completely in love with. Okay, let me ask you the question then. So you're obviously a creative spirit, creative artist. We're surrounded by your work. We're surrounded by we're in your studio. What does photography mean to you?
Well, photography and I have a complicated relationship because I spend my life making visual art. Photography and I have never gotten along.
Okay.
So I am crap at photographing my work. I am crap at framing a photograph, but my husband is an incredible photographer. Oh. So I really, really had to...
Okay, so please stop. Let's cut this conversation short. Bring your husband in, and I'm just joking.
No,
just
that's totally fine.
No, not at all. No, I don't want to talk to him.
You might want to.
No,
he's very interesting.
Keep going.
Except there's no interesting people on the podcast, so... No, but... he's a very good photographer.
Yeah.
And he's a very good portrait photographer.
Oh, nice.
So we've been married now for 22 years, I think. And
sweet, yeah.
I just leave the photography to him. So I don't feel the pressure to be good at photography. I don't feel the pressure to have a good feeling for photography and stuff like that.
Sure. No, I got it.
So I appreciate it. And through him, I've learned much better what to look for in photography and how to find something that is you can see the work that's gone into it in terms of people's eye and their framing, their composition. And even though I can't emulate that, I feel like through him I've found a better appreciation for the amount of effort that it takes to take a good photograph.
Okay. Now, let's just say I was speaking to a biologist whose job does field research and doesn't really make creative art. But I say to them, well, what's photography to you? For him or her, it's a tool, right? So going back to the question, I think there's the tension of, or the sort of attention to photography as a creative medium that you don't use. But so then for creative work, but what is photography for you? Maybe it's just a tool. Maybe it's just
it's everything from a craft to high art form. It's beautiful. It's like, as you said before, playing music, which is also it's like another universe that I don't understand. Love to hear it. Don't get it.
Yeah.
Don't know how to do any musical stuff.
Right.
But I find that photography, because that I have that slight insight into that world, I really appreciate a lot of it. One of our favorite photographers in Hong Kong is Ho Fan, and the work that he's done. And I love the storytelling element when you get a good photographer. Anything to do with storytelling, I'm on board.
Okay.
Right? And the way that you can tell a story with a photograph is the same thing that I do when painting. I'm find painting easier than clicking the shutter.
Sure. No, I get it.
Because there's a lot of stuff, and I can't be expert in everything. So just leave it behind.
Totally great.
Yeah.
How long have you been in Hong Kong?
Since 2005.
2005. Wow.
Yeah.
We got here in 2003.
Right.
Why are we only meeting now?
I don't know.
It's not right.
Yeah,
this is weird, man. So for the listeners, here's my journey. It's crazy raining, blah, blah, blah. I took a motorcycle into Saikong, then I took a minibus over to the Juice of the Garbage. Drink freely, shooting it raw. You're fine. We're having coffee at her studio. Take the minibus get to Nathan Road, walk through Nathan Road. Nathan Road's like intense. Come up to this eighth...
The Bedouin.
What?
Sorry, it's my favorite joke.
What is?
Intense.
Yeah. Oh, intense.
Like the Bedouin. They're nomadic people. They live in tents.
Ah, right.
Sorry.
Those are my people.
Yeah, they live in tents. So
And
they're
it's
intense.
true. We're intense. You're right. It makes sense. And I got, okay.
It never stops being funny.
Okay. Right. So,
Sorry.
no, it's great. It's great. No, stop.
Anytime you say that word anywhere in the universe,
sure.
Know that I am giggling.
Well, I'm going to find it. Because that's a really intense reaction. Okay. You're on the 8th floor. And it's really I love this about Hong Kong. Like from the outside, it's like whatever. And then you come upstairs and you've got this studio, which is very rare. I've been to a couple of studios with the different podcast guests. But this is rare and it's amazing. And we're going to get to know you through your work. I love it. Thank you so much.
I totally interrupted your story of how you got here. You were on Nathan Road and it was intense. And then you missed it. Then you stopped there.
I found the building. I walked over. Yeah, I didn't have to kill anybody. I saw people. It's morning, so we're just having our coffee. So let's dive into the first photograph, shall we?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to put my glasses back on so I can see it.
You titled it Identity. As an image, it's hard to like within the frame, there's like 2, 4, let's say 10, 20, let's say 30 sort of silhouettes or 25 silhouettes of people in various states of expression, kind of just standing as if somebody, it's more of an illustration, but it could have been at the base a photograph. Hard to know because there seems to be a lot of image manipulation. It's basically these black sort of faded.
If you turn around, you'll see it on the wall.
It's on the wall there. Yes, there we go. Oh, so what it is?
It's a light box.
It's a light box. Okay. So what's the story of this amazing piece?
So can I get it off the wall and show it to you? Or no, we should talk about the photograph.
However you like.
So. This is a piece that I've been working on. It's a series that I'm working on at the moment. And this is only one piece of it. But you explicitly said 3 to 4 photographs. I've pushed it to 4, so, It's
perfect.
So there's a second photograph that goes with this, where the light is on. And when the light is on, the gaps in the rows of people are filled in.
Got it.
And this is a piece of work that I'm currently, it's not finished yet, and there's a series that goes with it, and it's all about loss and longing and about finding your place and finding where you fit into the community. So in order for the light to go on, the viewer needs to be involved in the artwork.
Okay.
There's a button that you need to press.
Right.
And that button turns the light on, and if you let go, the light goes off and the gaps are there again. So this is about finding community and finding identity and finding yourself and your place within it. Because I think I've spent a lot of time being an other, being a bit of a fish out of water, fitting into lots of different places, but not necessarily taking them as my full place. And in Hong Kong in the last few years, this has been a place where I've delved in fully. I'm fully immersed in Hong Kong and quite committed to this space. And so this is part of how I'm trying to tell people that in order to be valued as a member of the community, you have to join in as well.
Okay.
Without you, there's no connection.
Right. And I got it. I know that sometimes talking about a work, which is a feeling, and the words are approximations or representations of the feeling. Sometimes it can feel like on the audio you can't see it, but as you're finishing your sentence, and maybe you could hear it in the tone of your voice, there was this sort of self-awareness or sort of almost, I wouldn't say embarrassment, but it's like you're kind of finishing it off as not with a sort of conviction and assertiveness as if you're sort of, selling an idea. But I understand that I think the notion of identity for Hong Kong is incredibly sensitive.
Yes.
And current. And so, for example, in the work that I've done, we've always talked about Hong Kong being, also like a conduit, essentially a meeting point or whatever for people who are coming through and everything. And it's for the people who settle, like myself, like yourself, like we're people who you can cough. It's allowed to cough.
I was burping.
You can burp, fart. It's raw. Do it all.
I'm so podcast conscious,
it's
I'm
fine,
like,
it's fine.
Audio needs to be clean.
Like I said, I'm going to break you. No, okay.
You go ahead and try. You go ahead.
But I love it. You see?
Is that me?
Boom. Perfect. Sorry about house. Where are you from in Canada?
Southwestern Ontario. Oh, you're actually from Canada, so I can be more specific because homesick Europeans, name our country. Right. So it's usually I went to primary school.
You're from Barrie or Hamilton?
No. From a very small town.
Okay.
Yeah.
Meaford?
No, smaller. My town has 200 people in it.
You've heard of Meaford? As a fellow Canadian, I hear it in your voice. Okay, but it's also interesting in terms of you come from a place like Canada. Mm-hmm. So where have you lived before Hong Kong?
So before Hong Kong, when I left Ontario, I moved to Vancouver for a while. And then I moved to China, to Chengdu. And then I moved from there. I came to Hong Kong. And I arrived in Hong Kong during a typhoon.
Nice.
Yeah. And I thought, being Canadian, I'm like, God, everybody says Hong Kong's really busy, but there's nobody around.
Right.
And it's just a bit windy and rainy. Like, there's no snow. It's not freezing or anything. Yeah. What's the problem?
Yeah, what's the danger?
So, anyways, I came through Hong Kong, was trying to go to Taiwan, but they wouldn't let me in because I'd washed my passport in the washing machine by accident, which is apparently not a great thing to do.
Okay. Learn something new all the time.
Yeah, awesome. Laundering passports, but actually laundering them. Right. Not...
That's okay.
And then I met my husband, and he said, when I was in the visa office, he said, why don't you come to England? Because he was studying in England. Why don't you come to England with me? It's an island, just like Taiwan. So I said, okay. And
you're a nutter. A fucking nutter. I love it.
Well,
you thought, he's pretty charming.
It seemed normal at the time.
Sure.
It seemed like what was I going to do? I could have flown back to Canada and gone back to a regular life, or I could have just kept adventuring. Amazing. And I hadn't maxed out my credit card yet, so you might as well, right?
Yeah. So, and if it didn't work out, you go the other direction.
Exactly. I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen? Now, I mean, admittedly, they kept me in immigration for 8.5 hours because my passport had been washed.
Right.
And at that time, we didn't have mobile phones or anything. So
you're just waiting.
And I only met my husband 5 days before.
Wow.
And so I was waiting in detention and wondering if... Right. There's all these people around me who are really distressed. They're like, don't send me back home. They're going to kill me. I'm like, wash my passport. But,
wow. So they let you out.
They're going to have to send me back to Canada, send me back to Hong Kong, or let me out. And they let me out. And my husband, my now husband, but then recent acquaintance, was still there.
Wow.
Waiting for me. Because we had no phone numbers or...
Amazing. Identity. Amazing. So... Okay, so a person like this, Canada, famously lots of space, concentrated populations, and I think Canadians wrestle with the concept of identity quite a bit.
Yes, very much so.
And what's interesting about, I don't know about if you feel this way, totally fine, but I think what makes Canada really interesting is there's this lack of gung-ho Canadian patriotism. I think Canadians are patriotic, but it's not like... It's a very kind of demure, kind of slightly embarrassed. Maybe not.
It's demure and embarrassed, but it's also rock solid at the core. I think.
Okay.
I think there's a lot there that makes it really... But the need to scream about it isn't as important, which is something I really value.
Yeah.
The idea that, you can say whatever you want about Canada, I'm comfortable with that, what it means to me.
What I really like about meeting people like you is that well, for the show, for the podcast, this is about, creative expression. That's one of the important values: creative expression, strong women, leadership, that kind of stuff. And surrounded in your studio, there are all these artifacts of ways in which you're expressing your inner self. And so when you came up with this notion of the identity piece, and to just kind of describe it a little bit more, like when you look at it, it's all these people in silhouette, kind of holding hands. It's you have to pay attention, but then you can sort of see. Essentially, it's people in silhouette, and there's a lot of white space. So that's one version, and the other version is that you turn on the light, which is what connects people even more, right? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's the connection. It's the connection from the viewer itself.
The viewer.
Oftentimes in artwork, the consumer, the viewer, the person who's looking at the art, is not interacting.
Right.
All they're doing is looking at it,
right.
And you're this passive, unconnected person. Now the artwork might connect with you, but you can't connect with the artwork in the same way.
Sure,
like it's not. It's a one-way street.
Yeah,
I think that's
so
bullshit.
Have you had a lot? But have you had a lot of pieces around this theme, or is this one example of the theme that's come up that you thought this is a very concrete way of materializing that feeling?
This year I'm working on light boxes.
Oh, so nice. Okay.
This is the new iteration of it. 2019 I made matchboxes, which are. I took a diary. I did a diary, 365 days. I made a matchbox each day with a little diorama inside of it, talking about my day. So that was my first real connecting. And then, of course, with everything that happened in 2019, that became quite a record of the situation. And then last year, 2020, I made paper mobiles.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed, first of all, the matchboxes were distilling a day into a tiny little piece.
Yeah.
And the mobiles were distilling a thought, I guess a message.
Atmosphere.
An
thought?
Atmosphere, an idea into a silhouette, into some simple paper shapes.
Right.
And that had to, I loved simplifying it and stripping away everything that was superfluous to get to that core idea. And I love that we have all this shared cultural identity or cultural pointers. I love that we have all of those things, and you can put up this one image. Like the image, you see the yellow lantern over there, Hong Kong windows, right? You see that and you think Hong Kong windows.
Sure.
Everybody does who's been to Hong Kong. They're like, that's a Hong Kong window. It's just a window, but it's a Hong Kong window. And it says something. It's something about where it is and what it is. And all that imagery just says so much, and that storytelling. So I really enjoyed that, and I wanted to try some more interactive things. So the mobiles were great because there's still one up there, and there's more in the hallway.
But they're dimensional, as they
they're
move,
three-dimensional.
It creates,
and
absolutely.
they're really soothing to look at because we needed soothing in 2020. And so they're really soothing. They're really just wonderful to just look at, turning gently and being. But the light boxes, I wanted something more interactive. Then it's time to stop being, with everything that happened in 2019, and then things became really passive for 2020. And 2021 is a time not to be passive anymore again, and to look around you and say, where is my role in this community? How do I become a valid and valued member? And how do I make other people, how do I give other people a space or make space for other people to also become valuable members and valued?
Well, in from your words to describe it, you are literally creating the connection by participating with it. So as an observer, you're seeing a crowd, and you give life to that crowd by interacting with it or whatever. I mean, these are just thoughts.
Yeah, that's the general idea, is that you're seeing a community of people. They're linked together, but there's holes in the community. There's gaps.
Right.
And those gaps can't be filled without you.
Now, the people who don't live in Hong Kong at this time in history are going to get one level of the conversation.
Yeah.
for the people who live here, and this is probably true with absolutely everything all the time anyway, but for the people who live here, there's so many complex levels that come up when you start talking that are very sensitive. They're extremely sensitive. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to take this breath as a moment to move on to the next photograph.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
You and your beautiful voice. Sure.
I mean, absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so the next image, good, laughing is good. If we're laughing, we know we're doing it right. The next image is called listening versus hearing.
Yeah.
And so the image is, and feel free to cough as loudly as you need.
I'm not coughing.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I'm assuming that's your hand.
It is my hand.
Okay. Holding up a construction made out of what looks like to be paper, like a sort of brown paper. And it's a 3D construction. So let's just say I was making on a computer a 3D rendering of what an ear could look like in the kind of, not in the hyper real, but in the more kind of like little boxy shaped panels or whatever. That's kind of what it would look like. But here it is. So the size of the sculpture is about, let's just say as big as a large loaf of bread. And what's neat is the light that hits the ear gives it extra shape. So it's a 3D ear to begin with, but it gives it extra shape. And the angle that it's being held at, like the background, is a whole bunch of these like older looking Hong Kong style walk-ups that have like maybe 10 floors or something. And it's almost as if somebody's holding up the ear of one of these buildings, is metaphorical ears or whatever. But it's an interesting sculpture. It's an interesting image. Did I notice that ear on the wall?
Yeah, I think you did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, listening versus hearing.
Mm. So when my husband and I were first married, I one day had an argument with him, surprisingly. You know, married couples do argue.
They do, yes. Yeah.
And he's Cantonese, and he told me, I said, "You're not listening to me." And he said, "I hear you. It's the same word in Cantonese." Ting is listening and hearing. Now, I mean, obviously there's subtleties. And he was trying to win an argument semantically. Sure. But it made me think a lot over the years about how we hear so much, but we rarely listen.
Okay. I'm listening to you.
Oh, thank you. And doing work with Hong Kong Stories and the storytelling work that I do with the community that we have around that, one of the principles that we teach when we're teaching storytelling to people is that the most important person in the room when you're telling a story is your audience. It's never you.
Sure.
And that's the hardest principle to get across to people because they're like, I have a message. I have something to say. And it's hard to get around people that if your audience is not interested or not with you, then you're just speaking to the void.
Right. Absolutely.
So I was talking to a friend of mine a couple of days ago, and she said, I was at this. She's a foreigner as well. And doesn't speak Cantonese, but she's working in a Cantonese school. And they had these lectures from the school officials that don't really have anything to do with day-to-day teaching, but they come in once a year and do these long theoretical, this is how we should be teaching. And everybody has to go, the teaching staff has to attend. Yeah. And she turned to her colleague once and said, could you just translate the gist of it? And her colleague apparently looked very shocked and slightly taken aback and uncomfortable. And she said, that means I have to listen. Like, I have to tell you what's going on. I have to actually be listening. I'm not listening. I hear it, but I'm not listening.
Yeah.
And I think we are spending a lot of time with everything that's happened in Hong Kong, listening only to ourselves and not hearing only our own voices and not listening to what's happening around us. And that goes back to identity and community and what I'm struggling with at the moment. Trying to find a way of listening and do the storytelling in order to give a voice and be able to teach that. But the more I listen to people's stories, the more I want to listen to more stories and want to give more platforms. So as you know, you probably already guessed, I'm very excited about podcasting in Hong Kong, and I'm very excited about the explosion of podcasts that I can listen to in the English language because I'm not really great at Cantonese.
Wow. Well, your Cantonese is years ahead of mine, so it's respect.
But that's what the ear is, and that ear is actually, it's filled with soundproofing foam, and you can stick a little microphone in it. And when we have Hong Kong Stories shows, I tend to put it up on a stand with a little sign underneath it that says, "We are listening." And you can go up as an audience member either in the interval or after the show and give a review or talk about what you want. And I had this dream of being able to build a portable podcasting booth with the giant ear that I can put on the back of a bicycle and cycle around Hong Kong and just let people talk.
Wow.
Because I feel like there's not enough spaces for people to be able to express how they feel and say what they want and give their opinion without necessarily... What's wonderful about audio is there's not necessarily a visual element to it.
Yeah.
It can be a lot more anonymous.
Yeah.
So this is my dream. One day I'll have a little pedal podcasting booth and I'll just cycle around and let people talk.
I love that you're crazy looking, insane looking. But that's so good. So let me describe...
What's crazy looking about that? I don't understand.
Nothing. No, not at all. Look, everybody's bent. Everybody's a bit crazy. Everybody's a bit idiosyncratic, and that's what makes it interesting, right? So everybody's stories are... So
I think that's perfectly normal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the podcast, how old is the podcast?
We started in 2016, but it didn't really I didn't really put in much attention to it until 2017. The reason behind it is not to get a large number of listeners and things like that, but to really, it was so that our storytellers could, play their stories for their mom.
Sure.
Or somebody who's not in the rooms. We sell out most of our shows, so somebody can't get a ticket. Well, your story will be up in the podcast.
Amazing. Amazing.
And it's been wonderful. We have, over 170,000 downloads, so we're quite comfortable with that.
I think, okay, so here's my external perception.
That's my little brag, right?
You can brag. You should brag. People should brag. The podcast is amazing.
We have a lot of fun with it, too.
It does. I'm sure. No, you listen to the podcast and you can hear the fact that there's an audience. And then do all the episodes follow roughly the same format where you're the kind of, you introduce?
Yeah, I'm the host.
You're not really in the way. You kind of sit there, you kind of sort of serve it up, and then the person, are they reading or they speak? It sounds like they're reading it.
We tell without notes. So they're usually in front of a live audience telling without notes. If you hear one that's without the audience behind it, it means something's gone wrong with the recording.
Yeah.
But I don't want to lose the story. So it's like this, do you record it with the flat, no audience, or do you record it? There's a few that are recorded without, and they sound much more like reading. Because
Okay, so maybe I fell on one of those, but I listened to a few of them, and for the people in Hong Kong, we understand how tumultuous it's been with the protests, and then with the big changes with the security law, and even people saying, you shouldn't even say the S word or the SL word. It's like that which shall not be named. So
Voldemort.
Yeah,
Voldemort.
sort of. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, getting people in a room and having them just tell their story, whatever it is, in open environment, which is not threatening, which is safe, is extremely powerful. And
really, really fun.
Yeah, you hear the people laughing. It's really great.
So good that we have the kind of general idea of starting it was that the two guys who founded it were sick of people coming up to them and saying, "So what do you do?"
Right.
Which is the first thing people usually ask in Hong Kong.
Well, it's everywhere.
Where are you from, or what do you do?
Yeah.
And they were like, we need something else. So we have this venue where people get to know you through your stories.
Sure.
And if you're a multiple storyteller, some of us are.
Yeah.
We had one incident where a friend of mine who didn't know this storyteller, who's a multiple storyteller, kind of went up to her after the show and said, "Oh, hi, how you doing?" And then she came to me afterward and said, "Oh my goodness, I was so embarrassed because I forgot I didn't actually know her."
Oh, right.
She said, "We've never met."
Yeah. Well, I think that happens.
Isn't that wonderful that you can go up to somebody and say, "Oh, you know what? My husband eats apples in bed too."
Yeah. For sure. Which is very disconcerting, but is also it's a great way of. I mean, I'm very friendly, so I definitely
attack people all the time.
Isn't it wonderful
Yes.
to have that Canadian card in some way?
I'm just friendly and polite. Sure.
Yeah, it's just this license to be able to talk to anybody.
Sure.
And if they go, what are you all about? You say, I'm Canadian. They go, oh, okay, that's normal.
Right. That's good. I have never used that one, but now I will.
Oh, I lived in England for a number of years, and it was my passport to being able to be not have to follow the social norms of not speaking to people.
So there's so many places to go. We're going to move on to the next photograph. The next photograph is, well, why don't you describe it?
It's the bias of safety, I've titled it. And it's me in a dress that I made. I make all my clothes for the summertime because I decided,
you made that
the
dress
I'm wearing right now. It's actually,
beautiful.
I make the same dress over and over again.
But it's beautiful. Nice.
Thank you.
Nice.
I teach people how to make this dress in the studio too. It's
it wouldn't
very
look
easy.
good on me. I look bad in a dress.
You'd be surprised.
Dresses aren't good. I'm really good in skirts. I don't look very good in dresses.
Well, maybe you just haven't tried the right one.
Sure.
So it's a dress I made. I bought a bunch of fabric. It was all really exciting. I couldn't decide which color I liked the best, so I just stitched it all together. So it's kind of a rainbow. And I'm in my very brand new, very exciting, sparkly pink roller skates.
Yes, old school. not the roller blades, but the roller skates. No. Yeah.
Roller
We're not here to play hockey. Okay.
So I recently took up roller skating.
Nice.
It took me a long time to decide to take up roller skating because I'm not very coordinated or sporty.
Okay.
Really good at riding a bike, but can't. Not great at core and balance and all that sort of essential stuff for roller skating.
Sure.
But I really liked the idea of having a T-shirt with like a kick-ass name on it, and I felt like I had to actually engage in the sport to be able to do that.
Oh, okay. So you actually made it like a proper, okay.
Yeah. I'm working on a logo.
Okay.
We've gotten together a posse of other people who are like, oh, I'd like to try roller skating.
Posses are good. Posses are really good.
We've decided on a name.
Oh, this is very Hong Kong of you. Yes, okay.
We haven't got a logo yet, but I'm sure we'll be there soon.
You need a good name.
We're called this is the one we're settling on at the moment. We're called the Eye Rollers, like lowercase I, capital R.
Nice.
And I've told a few different people in my life I'm going to take up roller skating, and I get a lot of
prepare them.
I get a lot of kind of, oh my God, that's really dangerous. So you can see in the picture, I'm wearing the full gear.
Okay. So you had knee pads, elbow pads.
My husband took this picture, so that's why I look really action awesome.
Sure.
He's really good at that.
Yeah.
Choose your photographer wisely.
No, of course.
This makes me look like super competent, but really I'm mostly like wobbling around with my arms out and falling over a lot.
Okay.
And all the kids, and this is in like a football pitch near my house, all the kids, of course, are on roller blades and rolling around, no protective equipment whatsoever.
Right.
Which I'm constantly laughed at for.
Yeah.
There's me, this giant woman in the helmet and pads and everything. And I carry my gear down because I don't feel safe enough to roller skate on the street. But
it's to learn somewhere.
Exactly, right? It's a challenge, and it's something that I kind of thought, roller skating looks really cool, and I put it off for years because it looked really dangerous as well. And what if I hurt myself? And what if? So I'm trying to not play safe because carpe fucking diem.
Yep.
We've only got one life.
That's the point of the podcast.
We do not have enough time to be afraid of things.
I agree. It's the whole point of the podcast. Yeah,
we don't have enough time.
Yeah.
Every day that goes by is a day that's slipping away from me.
Yeah,
Fill it up.
I hear you. I'm listening. Yes.
Thank you.
So
I decided to take up roller skating, and I went to the. There's a really great roller skating shop in Causeway Bay, and I went in with a friend of mine. We were having coffee together. I'm like, "You want to come buy roller skates with me?" And she's
support.
like, "Yeah." And we went in. Of course, everybody who does roller skating is really young.
Okay.
And like
competent. Who cares? Like,
so I go in and the shop lady is like, "So which roller skates do you think you want?" And I'm like, "Those shiny pink ones."
Yeah.
So they're kind of like iridescent pink.
Nice.
They're awesome.
I'm sure.
The other ones were like tan and green and white.
No,
I mean, who has white roller skates?
It depends what you're wearing. above the roller skates, I guess.
Shiny pink.
Okay. No, look, it says something for sure. It's part of your brand.
And then she goes, oh, well, you better try them on. So, okay, fine. I try them on. I'm sitting on the bench, and I go to stand up, and I put my hand on the wall.
Okay, yeah.
I almost sent you this picture.
Okay.
I put my hand on the wall to stand up, and turns out it wasn't a wall. It was like a cupboard door that was open, but I wasn't paying attention, right?
Okay.
So I immediately, fell
bailed on...
hard, right on my ass. And I had a bruise. Amazing. And this is almost the picture that I sent you, this big.
Yeah. She's using her hands to show the size of like a large orange. A very big.
The color of this black pop filter. It was black.
Okay.
And I bought the roller skate.
So she's like, so are you a beginner? This is your first time?
No, she was like, oh.
Of course.
I'm not going to make, I'm
not going to touch her. She's too big.
And I feel enormous and huge. And she's like, just go up and down a little bit. And I'm like, okay, I'd really like to humiliate myself in the space of my own.
I'd like to know, by the way, we're making reference to you being so big. I think you're like 5'6" or something.
Yeah.
You're not actually
just under 5'6". Yeah, no, but it's Hong Kong, and
I know.
As a woman, I often feel enormous here.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
You often go into shops shopping here.
No, for sure.
And the ladies will say, "Oh, it's free size. Oh, no size for you. Sorry, too big."
Yeah, exactly.
And that's normal. And I don't feel hugely conscious about my overweightness, but I do feel oftentimes that I'm just quite big.
But darling, you're not overweight. You look just fine.
I'm fine with my weight. I am totally as big fine. As I am.
You are just perfect the way you are.
I am the way I am, and I'm not changing that for anybody, but I'm often feel like my environment is not necessarily built for somebody my size.
No, I gotcha. I understand. I cut my scalp on things all the time.
Yeah, and I'm not even that tall.
So to pay attention to the wording, the bias of safety, because as an artist, you titling things, I know is something that you think about, right? Even if it's a throwaway. But why bias?
Because we have a bias towards safety. Mm-hmm. We have a bias towards keeping things the way things are because it's safe and predictable. Mm. What's COVID and the protests and things like that taught us? Yeah. It's taught us that, change is
scary. Yeah.
It's scary, but it's also something that you can't always control. And you can't always write the narrative. And that bias towards safety is what keeps us saying, let's just keep things the way they are. Let's just go back to normal.
Right.
Well, normal's broken. Let's make a new normal. We can improve things. We can improve our health. We can improve our communities. We can improve how we look at the world. Mm-hmm. We can improve our environment. We can improve things around us.
No,
we have that power, and we often go towards the bias of safety instead.
To quote and rhyme, if I may, it just came up to me right now in my head. Let's turn to Marcus for our excuse, which is, as an artist, he said the artists are the ones who will specifically go around and imagine an alternate way of being. And all of these things on the wall, on the floor, on your studio, the podcast is an excuse to imagine a new way of being. And the bias of safety, of keeping things the way they are, although life is about change and danger and all that stuff.
Take up roller skating.
Sure.
Get the shiniest ones that you want.
Yeah.
Wear your dress when you're going.
For sure. So you can...
Wear your safety equipment even if children laugh at you.
Yeah.
There's a couple of kids who, they see me and they're just like, we're going to play on the other side because we know you can't stop.
So you have a rep. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay, so you're still going out.
I can't stop. You need to get out of my way.
But
I'm big. You're little. I will crush you.
But you're getting better.
I'm getting better.
You see?
I'm learning to stop.
Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Day by day, a little step at a time.
But you're losing the whole, the beauty and innocence to competency. Because the incompetent have the excuse of, I can do whatever the fuck I want because
Isn't it
I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. My whole life I've been quite incompetent at 90% of my life.
I'm looking at your walls. As far as art is concerned, I don't see incompetence. I see
appreciate that.
Amazing work. Yes.
Appreciate that. There's some things that I feel competent about, but then, you only have to step a half step to one side and I'm in a different medium, or I'm painting with a different paper, I'm choosing different, and I'm now incompetent again.
Which is a great place to be.
So I can narrow my focus and only do one thing.
Yeah.
Or I can go, fuck it, let's try this. You know?
I think we talk a very similar language, you and I. I think we all understand each other.
When did we move to Boston?
I don't know. Is that Boston? I have no idea. I thought I was being French. Okay, let's move on.
Oh, okay.
So the next photo, shall we? Mm-hmm. Which is a photograph of a woman wearing a paper crown on her short hair. Dare I say this woman is you?
It is me, yes.
With contacts, or you're just not wearing your glasses?
I'm just not wearing my glasses.
Okay, so you're looking to the left, so you're in profile. It's a photograph. That's okay. Thank you.
No, I just think you'll get the image better if I turn the paper so it's directly on you.
Okay, you're wearing a nice blue. Well, so the image itself is printed rather warm. So the colors are quite. The background is like a wall that could be white, but because of the image tone, it looks very warm. Your skin looks very warm. Your expression is almost not recognizable because you're a smiley person, and in the photograph, you're just very neutral. So, does it remind you of anything as a Canadian? The Queen for sure in some ways on the dime.
Does this?
Is it a dime?
Yep.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Or on our coins.
Yeah, one of our coins, sure.
From various parts of history.
And the fact that you have a Bluetooth headset.
Well, you got to be listening to podcasts.
Okay, got it. So walk us through this photograph. What is and it's called The Social Construct.
Yeah, I've titled this for this talk. It's called The Social Construct, and this is the King George V diamond diadem that the Queen wears in all of her official portraits. And she uses for opening Parliament. Oh. And I've taken that and I've copied it in paper.
Ah, okay.
And I've cut it out. So I do a lot of paper cutting these days.
Yeah.
And I cut it out and I made a priceless object out of, nothing material.
Sure. Okay, yeah.
And so I've been working with this idea of making priceless objects and recreating them out of something that is not, because part of the social construct is that this diamond diadem and this queen who's, one of the last main heads of state that is recognizable around the world. Talk about symbolism and everything.
Sure.
And I don't have a strong...
By birth and no merit. But
I'm not entirely sure.
Not that I'm saying she's incompetent, but it's not like she was born and she earned anything. Like she was born into the queenhood.
Born into the queenhood, but also has spent a lifetime in service. That is something that I don't think we'll see again.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a bit of, you have to admire the hard work that goes into, what she does, but also, being born. Anyways, that's another topic entirely. But I don't have strong feelings either way about the Queen of England, but she's the queen of the country that I originally come from, and Hong Kong has a history with the British monarchy and this sort of stuff. So, plus, who doesn't love a fucking crown? I mean, I want to wear tiaras all the time.
Right.
My everyday tiara is, I've got tiaras all over the place.
You do? Okay.
And I've made a bunch of different crowns and things like that. I make them out of found objects, and they're super fun.
Yeah.
Wearing tiaras is awesome.
For sure.
Right. There's even an International Tiara Day.
Really?
There is. I can't remember what day it is exactly. I think it might actually be May 25th or 24th, somewhere around Queen Victoria's birthday.
Right.
As an English Canadian, I know that one because we have the day off.
But I'm a Canadian from Montreal, so we say, who's
so you say,
whatever.
2 fingers up.
Yeah, that's right. But
so I'm wearing this crown because in my travels and in my life, I've learned that social construct and that we have all these ideas of how we tell ourselves in our heads stories of how the world is.
Yes.
And a lot of those times, those stories are bullshit.
Yeah.
And so, I'm wearing this crown. I'm posing deliberately to look like the queen on the stamp or the coin or whatever. This is the classic pose.
Sure.
I've chosen this crown for that reason. And I'm just reminding myself that if you decided one day, not in a crazy way, I'm Napoleon now, but if you decided one day that, I think I'm just the same level,
sure,
just the same importance, then you are, because there's nobody else in the world who can tell you your worth other than yourself.
Right.
We spend our times gathering other people's applauding or accolades or things like that. But if you yourself don't feel like you're worth it, then you're not.
Yeah. So,
and the social construct is constructed to keep us all working in a way that benefits quite a small number of people.
Sure. Definitely a concentration. Yeah.
And again, it's the bias of safety.
Okay.
It's the bias of safety again. The social construct keeps us within an environment. And I think that we have the ability as human beings, I trust people, to make some pretty damn good decisions if they're allowed to take off some of that social construct. To shed some of the burden that we have around identity and sexuality and class and whatever else race and whatever else you've got there. Just fucking, it's all bullshit. It's all
construct.
It's a construct.
Of course.
It's constructed and not necessarily by you, but you participating in it are part of, you're like a brick in the wall. You're holding up a little piece. And that doesn't mean that you have to walk away from it and it needs to be anarchy. But recognizing which parts of the construct you're allowing in and not allowing in is hugely freeing.
Well, okay, so to use a diving board and jump off of there, just in terms of what you've said and stuff, to kind of connect it. So in a sense, like with your art media, the materials you like to work with, by limiting them and knowing them very well, you know how far you can go and also when and how to kind of break outside of that. So almost in a sense, like the better you understand the wall and your place as a brick within it and all this stuff, or within the social construct, the better you understand those forces and dynamics, the better you can design and fuck around with them. Like basically manipulate them or...
Oh, absolutely. How could you build something unique and beautiful and everlasting if you don't understand the pieces and where your place is in it? But how can you build something different and unique to you if you also don't recognize that you are a different and unique person yourself?
So one of what's interesting to me is the choice of the artwork I see. You're laughing. Well, first of all, your
it's a little bit of everything.
I love it. There's so much. There's like eye candy all over the place, and you use it a bit. Use the space a bit like as a kind of as a gallery, because some of the work is displayed as a group, and some of the work is kind of more sort of fractured, like a dolphin here, a beaver there. But listening to like transcending time in terms of the work that you're making, yet the material you're using is like watercolor isn't that permanent. Or like, for example, working with fabric. Fabric and fashion turn over very quickly, right?
Exactly. That's why you should make your own clothes.
Okay.
That's why when you find a dress pattern that you really like, you should just reproduce it.
Okay. Okay. But the way fashion seems to evolve over time, what?
Fashion doesn't really change that much. The colors, the patterns change. This dress that I'm wearing today is a basic shift dress.
Right.
It literally hasn't changed in hundreds of years.
Okay.
So you put sleeves on and you lengthen or lower the hemline. You add darts into it. But it's the same thing.
Right.
It's just cloth that covers your body.
Sure.
So, make it yours.
Listening to one of your podcast episodes, it was the most recent one. It's like the sex episode in a way, like this Indian fellow describing the first time he masturbated, which was actually very humorous, followed by a woman from Singapore.
He's Pakistani.
Oh, he's Pakistani.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the woman from Singapore ended up living in Finland. Yeah, and then basically going into, so from a very conservative space, going into these like massive saunas where everybody's naked. Yeah, dress, clothing. It's just...
Isn't it? It's just amazing how much,
Speaking of constructs.
Yeah.
From religion to clothing. Yes, absolutely. Total.
You know, how much do we make judgments about people about how they're dressed? You dress for the job that you want.
Right.
Oh, her skirt's really short. Oh, she's revealing too much.
Sure.
Oh, they can't play at Wimbledon because they don't have all white clothing.
Right.
I mean,
it's in many ways it's absurd. Like if you look at the constructs, the social constructs, we're fundamentally primates, and we have such complicated. And this actually works into the work I do in service leadership, service network leadership, is this idea that we have all these rules that we can design and ignore and change and whatever, but ultimately, if we step back and say, wait a second, like which fits very well with the sauna, right? A bunch of people just naked together in a room, and just you're like, after a while, you're just like, okay, it's nudity, but
well, we have in the studio we have a life drawing class every Tuesday night.
Okay,
so we hire a live model to come and pose for us, and there's a lot of my friends who are not artists, and they find that really weird. And you get all these comments about, oh, my boobs would be hanging really low, or, you know, what if somebody bent over?
Yeah, I can see my asshole.
Yeah, and as an artist, like, we're the people. You can tell the artist in a crowd at a sports stadium if there's a streaker, because we're the ones looking for a pencil.
Right.
You know, we're the one going, oh, damn, I put my pencil here somewhere.
Yeah.
Not so fast. Could you slow down a little? Could you just stand there? But we have a different relationship with the human body. And it's strange even how complicated that is in itself, and how we've had a lot of conversation in the last couple of years, the last year or so, about should our model wear a mask? So all of our sketchers, all of our artists wear a mask. But you put a mask on the model and it changes what's happening in the room. You put clothes on the model. Partially clothed model is very different than a nude model.
That's interesting. Because actually that's where your eye ends up kind of fixating on.
And it somehow has some kind of sexual connotation that comes along with it.
Right.
That is unintended, but inevitable.
Right.
As soon as you clothe or put something onto the human being. Now there's a narrative that's not about the body itself.
That's interesting.
It's now about the clothing or about what that means.
Right.
You know, you get a naked person and you give them a sword. It changes what you're saying.
Well, of course.
Even just holding onto a pencil or a stick or whatever.
Sure.
You know, it changes what happens. You put a hat on somebody and they pose nude, and it's different than if they are posing. There's a really great picture here created by a local artist, where she's taken a picture of a couple naked in TST along the promenade, but they're wearing their masks.
But they were actually naked?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're wearing their masks.
Sure.
So it's, you know, they're masked up, they're safe.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
They're following the rules.
Right.
You know?
And to be fair, I think in Asia, nudity has several shame elements that are missing.
Oh, it's just different kind of nudity, and it's only recent. I mean, people have had a complex relationship with the human body.
Sure.
Since we had consciousness, so
and
different kinds of nudity were different
right.
things. You know, you think about I don't know if you've ever seen the Chinese kids who have the split pants. So they have a split in their pants so that when they need to go to the bathroom as little infants, very small,
young kids,
then they can just squat over and go to the bathroom, and you don't need to change diapers and do it, which is much more environmentally friendly, but not necessarily environmentally happy
sure.
for the people living there. But it's a different idea, and that's normal. But if we were to let small kids run around Hong Kong with no pants on, that would be a different thing entirely. The relationship that we have with nudity is very strange.
Yeah.
I had an experience that really brought this to my forefront of thinking. About 10, 15 years ago, I was living in Tin Hau, and my husband and I always cut down the alleys because, you know, streets are often really busy, and we're both fast walkers, and rather than getting annoyed at people, they're super cool, right? Yeah. So we're walking down this alley, and it was a T alley, so it was one direction, and then it had a T junction, and it's New Year's Eve. And we're coming home. It's quite late, so it's probably New Year's Day by now. And we're coming home, and as we get to this T-junction, this man emerges who's naked. He's wearing his shoes.
Okay.
He's naked.
He's wearing his shoes, though.
He's wearing his shoes because Hong Kong.
Yeah, it's
stay
dirty.
clean.
Yeah, it's stay clean. Yeah, and a mask probably. Okay.
Well, no, because it's long before masks
okay.
were a thing. But he had Y-front underpants in his hand, and when he spotted us coming down the alleyway, he took his underpants and he held them over his face. And I thought, my reaction would have been to hold it over top of my private area.
Exactly.
Please don't look at my vagina.
But here, just don't associate my face with that. Yeah, that's funny.
But this man was so much smarter because I'm not going to really be able to pick out a penis in an identity parade, but I could probably pick out his face.
That's right.
So cover the part that's going to identify you.
Right.
Obviously. That's
really funny.
I have been thinking the wrong way my whole life.
That's true.
My instincts are incorrect. And that's just so fascinating, especially now that we're wearing masks.
Sure. Which is, that, I find that, okay, so really hilarious. I mean, there's some ironies and whatever in that a law comes out, you're no longer allowed to wear masks in any kind of group gathering. It's a law in Hong Kong, no wearing a mask. And then 1 or 2 weeks later, okay, everybody has to wear masks because that's the safe thing to do. And it was just like...
Not only do we have to, but we're not allowed to take them off until the government tells us that we're allowed to.
Exactly. So it's like, it's this funny little like... if you've read Catch-22 and you understand how silly the world can be, that's a funny little thing.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Okay, so I absolutely, this for me is such a pleasure to be in your space and talk shop.
It's wonderful to have you here.
Thanks. What can we say, or what can you say to kind of inspire, incite, pull forth a person who's kind of like, should I, shouldn't I haven't, like why, as somebody who's an artistic person and you've given yourself the permission to explore each time you have this idea, creative idea. Some people don't have that because they haven't trained that, right? They have this thing, maybe that would be kind of cool, but they wouldn't necessarily think, okay, I'm going to realize it. Whereas as a creative person, you're like, I think maybe I'm going to make, a different Matchbox diorama for a year, which is a massive project, right? So how do you help somebody, and I guess you've done this with the Hong Kong stories, how do you help somebody overcome that hurdle?
I try and do it with classes here too as much as I can, or just getting people in to have conversations about things. Honestly, you tell people, don't ever make something for somebody else.
Right, okay.
Make something because it helps you and it's something for you.
And yet, you're making it for the audience. What you said before.
Yeah,
you tell a story.
When you're telling a story, but a story is something that needs to be shared. You're still doing it for you.
Sure.
You want to connect with the audience.
Right.
But the vehicle has to have the audience as the primary thing.
That's who you're talking to.
That's who you're talking to.
Yeah.
But sometimes the audience is only you.
Okay.
So if you're really hesitant, because most people are hesitant because they feel like they don't have anything to say, or they don't have anything valuable to give, or somebody told them they were bad at art, or nobody values art in their life. But it's just this hugely, creating anything is powerful. Creating anything at all is a huge weight off your mind, off your body.
Sure.
It allows you to say something even if it's never seen by anybody. It allows you to say something and go, I like that. And
beautifully said. One of the things that is really funny about podcasting, which you've experienced, translating what you record in the room and then into a podcast, the audience comes out, which is nice. But what I want to share and sort of comment on, and we can end on this or not, but it's just that as you're saying these words, your face is just so alive and so radiant, and you actually believe what you're saying. Like there's a complete, perfect alignment of what you're saying. Like I believe you.
I do believe what I'm saying. I don't have enough time on this earth to do stuff that I don't believe in.
So get some roller skates.
Fall
on your ass.
Yeah. It was a spectacular bruise.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much.
Do shit. Enjoy.
Do shit and enjoy. Thank you.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.